Commissioner Wicks, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'd rather not.
You'd rather not? Okay. How about Commissioner Stewart?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do the roll call here. Commissioner Bickle? Commissioner Stewart?
Yes?
Commissioner Cinnamon? Commissioner Strabala?
Here.
Commissioner DeLarge? Commissioner Mace? Commissioner Wicks?
Here.
And I am Commissioner Smith. Appears we do not have a quorum, so we cannot do minutes today, but call to the public. Is there anybody from the public? Nope. Okay. So moving right along. Our agenda items are an update on the elections department. Right? No, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Oh, Commissioner Cinnamon is here.
Here.
Yes. Agenda items, the open meeting law review by Dan Jerkwitz.
Well, good morning, everybody. So this may be new to one or two of you, but this is probably just a refresher course. Please feel free to interrupt at any point and ask any questions that you might have. So we're talking about the open meeting law. The purpose of the open meeting law is opening the government business to public scrutiny and to prevent secret decision making. So we're going to go through all of this in fine detail, detailing what the statutes require. So meetings must be open to the public. Meetings of public bodies must be public. That means anyone can, quote unquote, attend and listen to the deliberations and the proceedings. All legal action, that is collective decision making with a close must occur in a public meeting. All right. You must have a notice and agenda like this one right here. All meetings must be properly noticed. The notice must include an agenda sufficient for a member of the public to understand what will occur at the meeting. So if this was posted on the website, I could see what the Election Integrity Commission was going to be doing today, and if I had some interest in whatever the particular agenda items were, then I could come and attend the meeting and potentially do calls to the public or just listen in to what business was happening here today. But if it's not on the agenda and it's not sufficiently detailed enough for me to know that I might be interested in it, then that defeats the purpose. All right, and when we're interpreting the open meeting law, we have to interpret it in favor of open and public meetings to balance on the side of transparency to the public. So who must comply with the open meeting law? That is all multi-member public bodies. Those are governing bodies, boards, commissions, committees of the state, and political subdivisions of the state, such as counties, cities, towns, special taxing districts, like fire districts and school districts, including standing, special, and advisory committees. This is an advisory committee to the Board of Supervisors, so that would also qualify, as well as subcommittees under the public body.
May I interrupt with a question?
You may.
My prior life, I was on the Pima College Governing Board, and we had executive sessions, but they had typically open portions of it and closed portions of it, and we had the door to the meeting open. And I just noticed, no, in closed session, the door was closed. But
You're talking about closing this door.
yes,
Yes.
so I was just wondering about closing this door, which we did just now for noise purposes in this open meeting.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Not an issue, okay.
Because the members of the public were notified
Okay,
that we were gonna be in room 3108
Okay.
and what the time of the meeting was. And so if people wanted to come in and attend the meeting, they could
open the door.
open the door.
Okay.
All right, so what is a meeting? A meeting is a gathering of a quorum, and this is just a meeting for purposes of the open meeting law, not for purposes of your bylaws or whatever other governing laws or documents might apply. But for purposes of the open meeting law, it's the gathering of a quorum, either in person or technologically. That may be by phone, by Teams, or whatever the case might be. Zoom, where legal action is proposed, discussed, deliberated, or taken. And what is a quorum? A quorum is a majority of a board or commission. And that is interpreted to mean a majority of the total number of members set forth in law or bylaws. So for example, if you had a 9-member committee, you would need 5. And I believe the Election Integrity Commission is currently 10. So what would be the quorum of a 10-member body?
6.
So what is legal action? It is a collective decision, commitment, or promise made by the public body pursuant to the Constitution, charter, bylaws, or specified scope of appointment of that body and the law. Usually that would be something like passing a motion, or a resolution, or something like that. The meeting includes an exchange of electronic communications amongst a quorum of a public body that involves discussion, deliberation, or the taking of legal action by the public body regarding matter even likely to come before the public body for action. It's not even on an agenda, but it would likely be something that the body would consider. It includes a one-way electronic communication by one member sent to a quorum that proposes legal action. So if I wanted to send an email to everybody on the commission saying, I think we should support option 3, that would constitute a meeting. Don't do that. It is not a violation for a member to express an opinion or discuss an issue with the public through the media, other forms of public broadcast communication, or through technological means if it's not principally directed at or given to another member. It's not a concerted plan to engage in collective deliberation to take legal action. So if I had a election blog, could I post my opinion on Pima County's election things on my election blog that was open to everybody on the internet? Yes. If I have a closed Facebook group that the public does not have automatic access to, but other members of the commission are in, that would be problematic. All right, so again, for meeting requirements, we have to have notice and agenda. We have to allow the public to attend, and we have to have some poor staff person taking minutes. Whatever minutes are, and we'll discuss that too.
Question, oh, never mind.
Yes, please.
Finish your notice comment, it's
No.
pertaining to notice.
Okay. So the notice must be conspicuously posted on the website stating where public notices of meetings will be posted. And so the clerk of the board usually takes care of this for Pima County's boards, commissions, and committees. Both are physical and electronic locations. And we post meeting notices on the website and additional notice as is reasonable and practicable.
The question, how much notice is required? Is there a statute, bylaws, or combination thereof?
How much
No,
notice?
yeah. 10 days notice, 5 days notice,
We will get to it.
okay.
Yes. It must be at least 24 hours prior to the start of the meeting. Okay? And that must be given both to everybody on the commission so that there's no surprise meetings that you don't know about. And also to the public so that there's no surprise meetings that they don't know about. There are some exceptions. If you have a very, very long meeting, which doesn't really occur in this context, but can in other contexts. If it's publicly noticed that this meeting is going on, and at the end of that public meeting, they say, okay, it's now 5 o'clock, we're gonna recess until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., that's totally okay. If there's an actual emergency, and as I've told this body in the past, this body doesn't have actual emergencies, but the Board of Supervisors might actually have an actual emergency that they might have to attend to. And ratification of past actions, if there's been a violation of the open meeting law, or action was taken inappropriately that needs to be ratified, we have to give extra notice to the public about that. The notice must include the name of the public body, the date and time, the place of where the meeting will take place, whether it's the physical address here on Country Club Road at the 3rd floor, 3108, whether it's going to be online in some virtual forum, and it must have an agenda of what's going to be discussed. For virtual attendance, the notice should clearly state the meeting will be remote by technological means and provide a website or link to connect with directions. It should provide a conference call number for telephonic attendance if that is how it's going to be conducted. And there should be a contact method for folks who are having questions about technical support or difficulty accessing, et cetera, to make sure that everybody can attend the virtual meeting if that's how it's going to be conducted. So the agenda must list the specific matters that are going to be discussed, and it must provide information reasonably necessary to inform the public and members about what's going to be discussed. It doesn't have to go into minute detail, but it has to give a reasonable summary of what will be discussed, that I know whether I should be paying attention to this item or not. Frequently for the Board of Supervisors, there's going to be links to agenda items that you can click through and get much more detailed information about an agenda item. We do that for transparency purposes, but the description in the agenda itself may or may not be enough, so you just gotta take a look at it. And when in doubt, provide more detail. So the public body may discuss, consider, and make decisions only on the matters listed on the agenda or matters that are necessarily related to matters listed on the agenda. We just want to avoid wandering off into, rabbit holes that are just not really related to the item that's on the agenda. Okay, so some of the agenda pitfalls is if the matter being described is incomprehensible to a member of the public. such as we're using legalese or acronyms or technical terms. We frequently use those things in the election contest, for example, that members of the public might not understand. I don't know what the NDRA is or UOCAVA or what those things are. And so that's just not in the normal lingo for a member of the public. And we also can't have non-descriptive categories such as new business, old business, personnel, announcements, reports, open discussion, training. That doesn't give members of the public enough understanding of what it is that may possibly be discussed there. There is one general category that is allowed, however, and that is current events. And we do this on the board's agenda occasionally, where the county administrator is going to give an update on current things that are happening in Pima County, like this department won an award, or these people are retiring, whatever it is. These are the things that are current events that are going on. It doesn't require an action item by the actual body. So this is a presentation by the chief administrator, presiding officer, or member about current events. If current events is on the agenda and the public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action. It is not a catch-all for items not properly on the agenda. So what is public attendance? The public may attend, listen, tape record, although nobody actually tape records anymore, but recording in some fashion, audio recording, video recording. The public may do all that at a public meeting. Now, members of the public have absolutely no right to speak at a public meeting. Only the members of the public body have a right to speak, unless it's specified in statute. One of those situations is a call to the public. So a public body may determine that they want to open up an opportunity for members of the public to discuss things, and that is optional up to them on whether they want to provide the forum or not. The public may not disrupt the meeting, and if they do so, they may be asked to leave, and they could face consequences up to and including criminal consequences. I also put on here HB 2927, which was a bill that was pending up until earlier this week and was vetoed on Tuesday, so you don't need to worry. Okay. Public attendance. And members of the public cannot, or the public body cannot require that members of the public sign an attendance sheet. We can, if the person is going to be speaking to the public body, get their name, because we will need that for minute-taking purposes. But otherwise, if I just want to attend and be quiet, that's my right to do so, and I don't have to sign in or identify myself. The public body cannot hold meetings in remote locations, like on top of Mount Lemon, for example, where it would be really, really difficult for people to get there. Or in secure locations where the public can't access the meeting. We also cannot hold meetings in small rooms so that the public cannot attend. Sometimes that's difficult because depending upon the public body, the meeting room availability is difficult. So we do the best that we can, but it should not be held in a room to purposefully exclude members of the public. Nor should meetings be held at unreasonable times, like 2 a.m. It needs to be at a time when most members of the public would be able to attend if they so desired. Again, call to the public is optional and not mandatory, and the public body can place reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. That means that a member of the public's time may be limited. We do this often as 2 or 3 minute caps, banning repetition of the same thing over and over, and prohibiting disruptive behavior. If an issue is not on the agenda, members of the public body cannot discuss that issue themselves or dialogue with the speaker. At the end of call to the public, members may instruct staff to study the matter that has been raised by the member of the public, place the matter on a future agenda, and respond to personal criticism. Tips for virtual meetings: ask individuals to identify themselves when speaking. That's helpful for minute-taking purposes. Ask everyone to mute themselves when they're not speaking so that the recording would be clear. Include copies of presentations and documents that will be discussed with the agenda and post relevant information on the website, and record the meeting. Talking about executive sessions. So it is possible for a public body to meet in executive session to discuss personnel matters, review confidential records, seek legal advice, discuss litigation, to engage in negotiations and settlements with attorneys, salary discussions, the purchase of property, tribal negotiations, sale or lease of real property, school safety operations, and security procedures. The only people allowed into an executive session are members of the public body, the person subject to the personnel discussion, if that's what is happening, the auditor general, the clerk, or the staff person to the public body, the attorney, if it's for legal advice, and those whose presence is reasonably necessary. Minutes of an executive session are required and are legally confidential. Meeting minutes must be kept and made available to the public. That may be either in written format or recorded. So as long as there's a recording available for members of the public to review, that qualifies. It must be available within 3 working days, 10 days for subcommittees and advisory committees, and be in a form that's readily accessible to the public, not in some kind of proprietary digital format that nobody has a player for or something.
Question?
Yes.
Is that
Approved.
meeting minutes or approved meeting minutes?
Well, you can't get approved meeting minutes until your next meeting.
Yes.
So it's going to be draft minutes.
Okay.
The minutes must include the date, time, and place of when the meeting occurred, the members present or absent, a general description of the matters discussed, and an accurate description of the actions taken. Must include the names of each speaker in relation to items, the members of the public body attending by telephone or electronically, the names of other remote participants and procedures followed for remote participation, a description of any emergency if an emergency is relevant, and a disclosure statement if the public body is ratifying a prior action. Okay, so some of the common pitfalls that we see with open meeting violations are listed here: serial meetings, splintering of the quorum, spoken wheel meetings, email meetings, and social gatherings. And we'll go through all of those. Serial communications. So this is where we play telephone. I'm going to call one person, and they're going to call the next person, and then they're going to call the next person. So this is a statement communicated from one member to another. And if the total number of members in that telephone conversation from one person to the next equals a quorum, then there's been a meeting. So there's no problem if I call one other person on the committee or commission or public body or whatever it is and have a conversation about an agenda item, But if we include enough people that there's a quorum, you just created a meeting, and that was a violation because there was probably not an agenda and a notice meeting, and the public didn't have an opportunity to participate and all that jazz. Splintering and polling occurs when members have separate or serial discussions with a quorum and relay the information received from each member to the others. I checked with Joe and he said this, and then I checked with Sally and she said this, and here's how we should, mesh this all together. That's not okay. And we should avoid even the appearance of impropriety. And we cannot use staff to circumvent the law. We can't use that staff person as the center of that wheel to communicate between all the members. Staff or another person who knowingly helps evade compliance are also subject to sanctions. Bottom line, it can be a violation to conduct discussions even between less than a quorum if the purpose is to circumvent the law. Major problem is with email. You cannot use email or other communications to propose legal action, discuss legal action, deliberate upon legal action, or take legal action. Email among a quorum is a meeting and a potential violation. Passive receipt of an email from staff is okay if the response is limited to that staff person, but then that staff person can't take that response and then relay it to other people. So that person can, and that's an email saying, here's the agenda for the meeting, and that's not a problem. And I can say, respond to the staff person and say, oh, I'm so glad we're having that open meeting law review on the agenda because it's been a year and I forgot everything that happened last year. So glad that's on the agenda. But if the staff person then sends that out to everybody else on the commission, that's a no. Major problem is do not reply all. And it's a good idea to have an open meeting law reminder in all email communications. Social gatherings are a little bit of a nebulous area. Events or social gatherings could become a meeting if a quorum of a public body end up at the same place. So sometimes there is a political event or something where the Board of Supervisors might have 3 people end up at that gathering. We try to figure out when those are going to happen, and we prophylactically notice a meeting with no agenda just to be transparent to the public that 3 members of the public body may end up at the same location, but they're on notice that they're not going to be addressing any agenda items, not going to be taking any action, they're not going to be discussing even things that might come before the public body because they've had stern warnings from their lawyer and they don't want to get in trouble. Assuming that there is a violation of the open meeting law, action taken in violation is null and void. They must be ratified within 30 days of discovery or it cannot be valid. A completely new action item would have to be taken. That would be important for timelines, if a timeline mattered. It does not cure the violation, though. It just allows that action item to become. So again, we must provide extra notice to the public 72 hours prior to the meeting, describing the action that's going to be ratified, the intent to ratify prior action, where the public can obtain a written description, and all deliberations, consultations, and decisions that proceeded and related to the action that was taken in violation of the open meeting law. Unless timely ratified, those actions are null and void. And regardless of whether it's ratified or not, the Attorney General, the county attorney, or a member of the public may bring suit for violations, and a court can order compliance. Violations can come up with civil penalties, and the court may impose a penalty for knowing violations by a member or anyone that aids that member and agrees to aid or attempts to aid, up to $500 for a second offense and $2,500 for subsequent offenses. And we very much appreciate everyone's public service by serving on commissions like this, and we don't want to see anybody become personally liable for doing their good deeds as citizens. So, court may award attorney fees as well if the court finds a member intended to deprive the member of the public of information or the opportunity to be heard. The member of the public body can be removed from office. The public body may not pay a fine assessed against an individual and will not hire counsel to defend open meeting law enforcement actions unless there is specific legal authority to do so. So the bottom trouble is to focus builds public transparency. It keeps everyone out of trouble, and it also builds public trust in the public's business that public bodies are engaging in. So every member of a public body must review open meeting law materials before taking office. You can find a lot of these on the, I think not all of them, links on the clerk of the board's website to the Arizona Attorney General's Agency Handbook, which has a very, very in-depth discussion of the open meeting law, and the Arizona Ombudsman, which has a more layman's recap of open meeting law information. That's it. Any additional questions? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, it looks like we have a discussion on drop boxes.
Yes. Am I on? Yes. Can you hear it?
I don't think your
No?
mic is on.
It's on, right?
Is it?
It's a different setup this time. There's maybe a switch.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll speak loudly then. And I'm sorry you have to tell me that every time. All right, so our office received the notice of a request for discussion from Commissioner Strabala. Did I say that right? Strabala, sorry about that. From Commissioner Strabala regarding the couple of items that I mentioned at the last meeting, which are the ballot drop boxes that are unattended. And we're referring to them currently as 24-hour ballot drop boxes. And also regarding the combination of our return envelope and early ballot affidavit envelope. So the first piece of paper that you should have is, I understand that there was some concern about the legality of the elections procedures manual, and it is a legal document. It is given express legal rights under Title 16, Section 452, where the Secretary of State will consult with all of the counties, and the Attorney General for the state of Arizona, as well as the governor, have to approve the elections procedures manual. So currently, all of the election administration in Arizona is being governed by the 2023 elections procedures manual, And interestingly, we are having monthly meetings to review all of the chapters for the 2025 Elections Procedures Manual currently, because it's in Title 16452, it lays out that it should be done every 2 years. So we are going through those sections 3 at a time. We're revising to make things clearer, making recommendations to revise to make things clearer. We are incorporating new legislation that has passed. And so that's ongoing, typically in an odd-numbered year, which is supposed to be a little bit quieter than an even-numbered year when the federal elections are happening. But as my colleagues in the Elections Department can attest, it's not a quiet year. We have 4 elections this year, potentially. And so the Elections Procedures Manual is a legal document. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but we have cited the statute and some of the language of the statute. And I will say that even as recently as last year, the Arizona Free Enterprise Club sued the Yavapai County in Yavapai Superior Court regarding ballot drop boxes, contending that the EPM did not have the authority to allow them. And the court ruled that 16452 does indeed state that the Elections Procedures Manual is a set of rules for consistency across the state. And that is something that we all take very seriously. There are some concerns you may have seen in the news recently about and I spoke about this last time, the MVD DPOC folks that are caught up in that issue. The counties are doing things differently, and so we've reached out to the Secretary of State, has reached out to the Attorney General for a decision on that, an opinion, an official opinion. So it's something that we all pay very close attention to. We meet as a statewide body multiple times throughout the month. There's a Recorders and Elections Department meeting with the Secretary of State. We have a Recorders Association meeting once a month. We have weekly AVID meetings, which is the statewide voter registration database meetings. And sometimes some of the policy gets discussed on those meetings because we're talking about improvements to the database or to the program. So we're constantly meeting to make sure that we are all doing the same things across the state. So if anybody has any questions about this, I'm not an attorney. Until our attorney, who just left, tells us that we can't follow something in the Elections Procedures Manual, we do have the right to do that. So that being said, any questions about this? Yes.
I have just one question. You mentioned some MVD POC Chopra issue.
Yeah.
Could you just give me a 10-word summary of that? Because I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was a discussion last week about, or last month about across the state, there are about 218,000 voters who, because of a programming glitch from decades ago, were not marked on their driver's licenses as having provided documentary proof of citizenship.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, okay, any other questions about the Elections Procedures Manual?
Are there any open issues with respect to lawsuits against the EPM, 2023 EPM still?
I think that they've all been decided. I believe that there is a potential appeal on one of the elements. And I do believe that when that happens, the manual is not thrown out entirely, just the provision within the manual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. These are beautiful one-pagers that our communications department put together. I want to manage expectations. We can't always do this in a week. when we are writing the procedures and, working on a very condensed timeline. So we had to have the Board of Supervisors has to approve our ballot drop boxes, box locations, and emergency voting sites. So given that timeline, we had to quickly put together our plan for these unstaffed, 24-hour ballot drop boxes. I do want to say that the recorder wanted me to remind everyone that this was something that she ran on when she ran as recorder in 2020. This is something that she promised the people. And we are the last county in Arizona to have unstaffed ballot drop boxes. So I mention that for a couple of reasons. One is that we are the second largest county in the state, and yet we haven't provided this level of convenience for our voters. The other reason is because we're not having to troubleshoot and figure out. There have been, all of our counterparts across the state have already had the trials and tribulations, tested how to find the best location, how to secure the boxes, how to monitor the boxes. And even the Secretary of State did an extensive study in 2020, I believe it was, on fire retardant in boxes and tried to set them on fire. So we have all of that benefit of the pioneers across the state to draw from. And I shared with you these last 2 pages, just for reference, some of the information that our friends in Yavapai have shared with all of us regarding some of the cost savings of having unstaffed ballot drop boxes, and we'll talk about that, and also some of their chain of custody documentation. So we're in the process currently of putting together the chain of custody documentation, but I assure you that it'll follow the elections procedures manual. It will follow, to some degree, our current chain of custody procedures as well. And you should know that those procedures are always put up on our website. Once we have them finalized, we will put them up on our website. Okay, so the main benefit of this is voter accessibility. Obviously, it's hard for working folks to leave work. We don't have a day where we can go, and we don't have a holiday on election day, for instance. So having a 24-hour drop box is very convenient for working folks. It's going to be open 7 days a week, 24 hours during that 27-day early voting period. It enhances voter accessibility. It streamlines the voting process. So if folks if they don't feel comfortable mailing their ballot, which I understand a lot of people are uncomfortable mailing a ballot, they want to make sure that we'll get it. They want to drop it off to our location, to one of our locations. Sometimes parking can be an issue. Sometimes, you can't get there by 5 o'clock. We have to staff those locations as well. And so this is good for voters, and it's widely popular across the state. And it's popular across all of the political parties. Everyone uses these. So just a few key benefits and features is that they are bolted into concrete. They're bolted, the bolts are not accessible. They have a narrow opening for ballots only, so it's about that much. You can only get something about that big in there. It will contain a waterless fire extinguisher. As I said, those have been really extensively field tested by the Secretary of State. And our facilities department, Pima County Facilities Department will procure these and install them. They will be located for this election on county property. In the future, we will consider other municipalities in terms of locations. So the two locations, they will be under secure video. So the two locations where they will be for this primary election will be at our downtown location and at our east side location, which already have camera coverage. And the camera coverage is monitored by the Pima County. Now, that doesn't mean there's going to be 24-hour surveillance of the boxes, but if there's a concern, they will have footage, okay? Obviously, I already mentioned open 24/7 during an election cycle. Some of the other security measures on the box, and this comes standard with these boxes, is there's an anti-pry door jamb. They have industrial hinges. There's 2 high-grade brass cam locks, and the keys cannot be copied. So we have 1 copy of the keys. There's a one-hand chute, which means that they're ADA accessible, and it has anti-theft construction. So there's a thing, I can't remember what they call it, but it's like a false ledge. So you can't get your hand in and grab anything out. You can't even see in and see what's in there. Sorry, that was the next item. So that's the sloped entry and false lev that prevents any contamination or destruction. Okay, so currently as I said, we will have one at our downtown location, at our east side location, which is not an early voting site. It's in the past 5 years, I guess, 4 years, it's been a ballot drop-off only, and now there will be a drop box. And typically, we're going to always try to have it be a drive-up ballot drop box. That's even more accessible. Obviously, sometimes that may not be possible, but the location downtown we're identifying an area that is owned by the Pima County, where we had our drive-through ballot drop-off that was staffed during the 2024 election. So over between us and the Pima County Schools building. And the nice thing about starting it off with 2 locations where our staff is very close is that we will get a real feel for how much they're used, how often we have to empty them. In the future, there's a possibility of potentially purchasing monitors inside the boxes. This company and other companies actually have that available. I think it's called KMS something. I don't know what it stands for, but so that it has sensors inside the box, so you get a message when a ballot is dropped in, and you get with which when it gets up to a certain. It'll just be. For now, we're really comfortable with them being so close. We'll just be emptying them every day that we're open. Any questions about the drop boxes? Yeah, Commissioner Stewart.
My question is, it's, what time on election day is it no longer available for dropping off ballots? Is there a
7
time?
p.m., yes.
7 p.m.
So we will
okay.
have staff ready to lock the box so that and these will be permanently affixed, so when we're not in early voting, the box will be locked. And you can't get anything in. And then it's right at 7 p.m., we will have staff available to lock the boxes.
So the unattended boxes are going to be monitored by camera. You can review the footage,
Yeah.
For the times when it's not physically being observed. I'm familiar with systems like that. Will there be a review of the footage, say, before you open the box, after you last opened it?
No, that's
Not
not
unless
part of our
there's some
procedure.
indication.
Yes, and in the Secretary of State's testing of potentially like a fire in the box. They created some guidelines for don't open the box because it will add oxygen to something, whereas something would potentially die. So if there's a concern, if we go to the box and there is a concern, then, we may call security.
The reason I ask is I sometimes worry about, ballot harvesting and people showing up with tons of ballots that they shouldn't have, stuffing them in the box, and if there was a video review before you opened the box, you could say, okay, there's a problem with this set of ballots and constrain the problem rather than passing it on through.
Yeah. So we don't enforce ballot harvesting at the recorder's office because people have a right to drop off ballots. If you're a caregiver, you can drop off the ballots for the people you care for. You can drop off ballots for family members. And so it isn't currently in any of our procedures across the state to monitor that. So we feel really confident that our signature verification process would actually identify those types of issues. If for instance, somebody filled out 7 ballots and put it into a Dropbox, we would recognize that the signature was incorrect.
I have a question. I'm really impressed with the cost savings. I'm stunned, actually, in Yavapai, that
Yeah.
60% of the ballots were dropped off. Is there a way to get information about the other 13 counties that use drop boxes in terms of the savings and the usage?
We've asked them for their presentations. Most of them don't have, I believe that Yavapai has a really robust presentation. We pulled these things from their presentation because they were involved in a court case. And so I don't know if the other counties are necessarily identifying those things, but we have reached out to them. A lot of we can grab, and anything that we can grab, we will pass along, obviously, on our website. We love sharing that kind of information. And I will tell you that once we do a couple of elections, we're going to have an idea of how much we have saved as well, because we process we ballots and them. So we have lots of reports for that. These ballots will be counted separately. And when I say counted, not counted like tabulated and counted, I mean counted by our department so that we have some metrics to understand like how many ballots were mailed, how many ballots were dropped off at our sites, and now we will measure how many were dropped off at one of these 24-hour drop boxes.
Question on that. Will the daily reports segregate mailed, satellite, now Dropbox?
I believe it does. I believe it will. I'd have to look at that. I'd have to look at our last report. Yeah, return if it had. Yeah, it would because it has.
I had mailed and
Yeah,
satellite.
Returns and yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes,
My
it
only
would.
question I could not glean were the batches that the election day drop boxes were in. They weren't clearly segregated in the publicly accessible report.
Correct.
Are you
Yeah,
doing-
we don't typically identify those separately because those are ballots dropped off. We do on election night report how many ballots were dropped off on election day. And that is done through the Secretary of State's office, and that's mandated by law. It's the elections department that does that report, but we give them the number
Right.
from our sites that collect those as well. So,
Just a question, have you considered segregating the report so that we know when those election day dropped ballots are processed? That was the question I was trying to answer looking at the data post-election, is when were the 32,000 election day dropped off ballots processed? And I couldn't tell from the postal.
I'm not really sure that we would separate those just because they're not a different type of ballot, but I'll take a look at that.
Well, you do it for the satellites
Yeah.
prior to elections, so fundamentally, conceptually, it's not that much different. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, yeah.
And my second question, did you get your answer?
Yes.
Is for the video monitoring, is that video monitoring going to be accessible to the public,
By public record, yeah.
but not real time?
Not real time as it stands right now, yeah, yeah.
Is there plans to allow the public to monitor real time?
We don't have a plan to do that at this time. Not that, it's not like we wouldn't want the public to be able to monitor it. They're in public places and they will be outside. But we just don't have a plan to do that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to the single envelope solution. Once again, this is a voter-centric solution. It is, there are many reasons why we wanted to move to this solution. Voters get confused sometimes which envelopes to use. There are times when a ballot is put in the yellow return envelope, missing the affidavit, and there's no way to identify that voter. So they took their time to vote a ballot, and then it's put in a return envelope. We call those naked ballots. There's no way to identify that voter. That voter's vote clearly is not going to count. The processing, the amount of time and staff that it takes to remove ballot affidavits from the yellow return envelope is immense. We have probably 30 full-time intermittent employees, so our seasonal temporary employees working on this in these high-volume elections, just removing. And then we have teams of 2 going through all those yellow envelopes that are in a bucket, basically, to make sure that nobody missed a ballot affidavit. It's very labor-intensive, very time-consuming, very expensive for Pima County. So we currently, when we announced that we were going to be moving to this single envelope, our voter team, our leadership, is concerned that our intermittents won't have enough to do. And so we're finding other things for them to do. However, we processing these ballots. We reduce the that we're going to be having processing these ballots. It speeds up the processing. The signature verification is faster. The scanning of the ballot affidavits is faster because they come in and we can just stick them on the scanner and start getting them processed right away. There's a decrease in paper waste. So it'll be more environmentally friendly. It's also less expensive because they're not as heavy. So the ballot packets are not as heavy, so postage will be less expensive. And it maintains privacy and security by assuring that no party affiliation is visible on the envelope. The ballots travel securely from one government agency to another, which is the U.S. Postal Service. Now, as I mentioned before, I understand that some people are not comfortable with mailing their ballots, and they may not be comfortable with having their signature on their ballot affidavit. And they can, if they choose, drop them off at one of our early voting locations or at one of our 24-hour Dropbox locations, which will be expanded in coming years. So those will be more accessible. The majority, I'm not sure how many counties across the state, but the majority of them have a single envelope solution.
Including Maricopa?
Yes. And we maintain the color so that the post office, because the post office will pull ballots during early voting so that they don't go up to Phoenix if they're mailed. And so having it be a very recognizable yellow envelope like this is beneficial to speedier processing. A couple of things that that I wanted to mention for both items is that something that you all can do to support voters in ensuring that if they are using early voting, whether it's by mail, they're requesting a ballot by mail, or they get a ballot by mail for every election they're eligible for, or if they're voting in person early, is to sign up for status notifications on those ballots. That way, if they drop off a ballot at one of the 24-hour locations, boxes, they're going to get a notification that we have received their ballot and let them know through the process where that ballot is. So up until the point when we turn those ballots over to the elections department for their processing and tabulation, we're letting them know where it is every step of the way. Your ballot has been signature verified. Then your ballot has been turned over in batch C3 to the elections department. And from there, your ballot is, once it's separated from the affidavit envelope, it's a ballot, and so there's no way to track it at that point. And so that's something that we've really been encouraging people to do, is to sign up for notifications. You're going to receive notifications if there's been a change to your voter registration record, as required by state law now, as well as any ballot status notifications. If somebody doesn't want to sign up for email or text notifications, they can still go to our website and see the status of their ballot. But that's the best way to ensure that your ballot has been received, is to encourage voters to take the initiative to monitor that. Yes.
I can't remember, but was there information in the ballot packet about signing up for those notifications in the last
Yes.
ballot? So, so the recorder is getting that word out about that.
Yes, we are. And we just redesigned our voter dashboard. We haven't put out a media release yet because there's a couple of things that, that we're making changes just to make it a little bit more user-friendly, to opportunity to sign in to a voter dashboard, and all your information is there. Which districts you live in, voting districts you live in, what your voting history is. You can see if you're going to be sent a ballot for a particular election. It's very confusing for people. It's confusing for me. I don't know. I kept saying, why am I not getting a ballot for the City of Tucson, or a 90-day notice for the City of Tucson primary? Because I'm not eligible. So voters have a lot of questions, and sometimes we forget where we live, and we forget which party we're registered to, and we forget, you know, if we're gonna get notified of a ballot, but we put it all in one place instead of going to 25 different places. And this is also where you can request a ballot online.
Question, are you going to have a history of, I'll say, voter registration changes
Yes.
available? So you can,
Oh, for
If I
that
were-
isn't on the website, but you can request that, yeah, yeah.
One question, I know particularly for the primary, you can glean a lot from the ballot style information there, and you're gonna move the party affiliation.
Mhm.
Will, I'll say ballot style, RD, GL, will they be able to glean, based on ballot style information, party affiliation?
The ballot style, if they have that information, yes,
So,
yeah,
although the explicit party affiliation will be removed,
correct.
the ballot style can be interpreted to.
It could be, yes,
So
yeah.
that isn't protected, and there's no way around that.
There's no way around that, yeah. This is, we have to know what type of ballot style this is,
I understand.
yeah,
So you're hiding the explicit,
yes.
but not the information still can be gleaned.
I don't understand the question.
So on the ballot, underneath the barcode, you
Yes.
have, I had to take a picture because it's kind of hard to see. You have a ballot style, then you have a red, and then you have a 001. So for the
On the barcode, is this what you're
below the
talking about?
barcode is some information. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the code information ballot that you're getting basically is a code for the kind of voter.
I see,
And it's picked to you as a voter.
I see.
And in the primary, instead of getting all the candidates, you only get your candidates for your party. And based on reading that barcode and having some insight, having word tabulation and signature verification, I have enough knowledge that I could probably glean party affiliation from that code. The general public, without knowledge that I've gleaned over time, may not have that, but it's still decipherable
On the envelope
on the envelope.
that's in a mailbox or a drop box. Okay,
On the return envelope,
right.
yes. And that I'll say is a concern that ballots could be, there's a potential for ballots to be not delivered in some form. Not saying it happens, but it can be sortable.
It's a method.
It's a method.
It's fantastic.
It's a vector.
It's also a felony,
Yeah,
yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Just claiming that party affiliation is the information is still there, but it's hidden.
Is
It's subtle.
that information isn't, question, is that information on the ballot envelope that is mailed to the voter?
No.
Okay.
No.
Did I get that right?
Yep.
Any other questions?
I have
about
an
that?
appointment I gotta run.
Okay.
My only comment, and hopefully it would be a minor one, is that sometimes my mail looks like it's been around the block several times, you know what I mean? It's kind of scuffed up, so if you're trying to verify a signature, I hope that doesn't turn out to be a problem, that you're
Yeah.
ending up then using your resources to have to
Call.
track that many more people.
Yeah.
Yep.
We haven't heard that concern from other counties that have done this. We'll keep an eye on that, yeah.
I know there are a number of states that are mail-in ballot only, and I happen to know that in Oregon, they use this, and probably in Washington, but I don't know that for a fact. So information about the problem that Commissioner Smith might be mentioning is probably available.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you very much for responding.
You're welcome.
thank you. Does anybody have any future agenda items they'd like to see us?
A related question, for the CD7 elections, have the vote centers and the voting sites been finalized yet or approved by the BOS yet and available to the public?
They're going before them on May 20th.
Okay, and then you'll release that information to the public after that?
Yes.
Thank you.
And they may be already up on the clerk of the board's website,
Okay.
right? Yeah,
I looked last week, I haven't looked this week.
As soon as the agenda is official.
yeah.
All right, our next scheduled meeting date is June 20th. Does anybody have a conflict with that? I will not be here.
I will
You'll be here? Everybody else is good keeping June 20th as our date? Okay?
We will be in early voting, so you probably won't see the recorder's office.
Okay.
Early voting starts on the 18th.
All right, if there's nothing else, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.